Welcome back to the United Soccer Coaches Podcast presented by Team Snap. I feel like the theme today is winners on the women's side, D1, but nobody's as good as our next guest, as far as this season at least, D2, the University of Colorado, Colorado Springs, the Mountain Lions, women's soccer team, number one in the country, 19-0. They are led in their third year by Sian Hudson. It's spelled S-I-A-N. We'll get to the bottom of that as well, as Sian Hudson joins me now. He's the head coach of the University of Colorado, Colorado Springs, 19-0. Coach, number one, 19-0. That sounds pretty good to me. How about you?
Yeah, it sounds great. Definitely excited about the run that we're on at the moment, and just hoping to keep it going.
Well, we're really happy to be with you. Love your story. You're from the UK. You're actually one of the youngest, if not the youngest, full international player to ever play for the Wales national team when you were 16 years old, which I know was just a couple years ago, Sian. So well done on that. Congratulations. And you make the decision in 2001 to come over to the United States. First of all, incredible to be capped that young. But tell us what was the draw of the United States and how did you end up in Colorado?
Yeah, back when I was playing in the UK, women's football or soccer really wasn't well respected. And it was certainly a male-dominated sport. And I just wanted to live in a society and environment where, female athletes, and in particular female soccer players, were championed, and not, dealing with sort of the negative perception that we had at the time. So I worked for a camp company called Challenger Sports, British Soccer. I traveled over here every summer when I was in college, and just got the opportunity to sort of see what I could potentially be here, and love the soccer culture here. So my international career at the time was sort of coming to a close because of 6 or 7 knee surgeries and a couple of ACLs. So I was sort of at a pivotal moment in my life where I was graduating college and just needed to make a decision on what to do, and I decided to come out to the States and pursue my passion for coaching.
Yeah, you ended up in Colorado, which there's, worse places to be. It's God's country, Colorado Springs. I started my career with USOC at Colorado Springs and still have amazing memories of that place. I absolutely love it out there. And you ended up as the senior girls director of coaching for the Pride Soccer Club. And you said initially, maybe they weren't super competitive, but you turned them into a pretty competitive team. Just talk about landing there and the growth of Pride Soccer Club, please.
Yeah, I actually stayed with an American family during a camp I ran in the Springs, and they gave me an opportunity to live with them. And so I think, as with anything in life, relationships build opportunities. I'm certainly thankful to them. Pride Soccer Club at the time only had one director of coaching for 5,000 kids, and I interviewed with a bunch of different clubs in Colorado and felt like Pride was sort of an untapped resource at the time, and they were going through some restructuring. So I came in as the youth girls director for U11 through U13s, and over the course of the 13 years I was there, sort of worked my way up to be the senior girls director of coaching. And then in my final 2 years with the club, I started up a women's semi-professional team, or the W League team at the time. We were really successful and lost in the national championship game in 2015 to the Washington Spirit Reserves. So I think my time with Pride, from coaching everything from 7-year-olds up to international level players with the W League, just gave me that time to really hone in my coaching philosophy and just really decide where I wanted to be. And at the end of that W League season in 2015, I made the decision to get into the college ranks, and here I am.
Yeah, well, you also showed the capacity for administrative roles. You were the GM for the Colorado Pride W League team in the team's first 2 seasons, and then you also spent time at Colorado College, which is an esteemed program for many reasons in women's soccer, before getting the call to join the University of Colorado, Colorado Springs. So talk about your role as GM and then going to Colorado College and then getting the call to take over this fine program.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I learned to appreciate as a club director of coaching was, the many difficult conversations you have to have with parents, and, learning how to get people to buy into your vision. I think there's no more difficult job than youth soccer parents for that. So definitely learned a lot and grew through that component of the game. My general manager role with the W League, I pretty much did everything from marketing to fundraising to coaching, recruiting internationally. We were able to bring together a phenomenal group of players, and we actually won the Rookie Franchise of the Year in 2014. We had over 1,000 people, highest attendance in the league. So that was just a memorable experience in 2014, and I definitely learned a lot on the event planning side of things. We had 45 host families locally, and so just learning how to deal with players and their needs and everything that went into. We had professional players on the team at the time. We obviously had amateur, collegiate players. And so there's a lot of man management and just balancing of the roles. But that definitely gave me a different appreciation for what goes on behind the scenes and maybe showed me what a little bit of, sort of the college game would be like with all the administrative aspect of things. And then getting the opportunity to go to coach at Colorado College, a good friend of mine, Jeff Bennett, is the head coach there, and he called me up. He had an opening and asked me if I would be interested, and I think the timing was right, and I'm really thankful for that 2 years that I had at CC, because I feel like it gave me an opportunity to learn and grow in a secondary role, and obviously recruiting is a large component of the college game, and so just learning all the NCAA rules and how to recruit, just sort of the landscape of collegiate athletics, not just in this area but also across the country, was important. I know a lot of college coaches, at the various levels from my time at the club game. A lot of those college coaches would come, recruiting my top athletes. But I think being in college and actually learning how to deal with, a really condensed season and how to rest and recover players and how to train what you need to get out of them in such a condensed period of time was a really good period of growing and learning and development for me at CC.
So when you learned that this job was open at University of Colorado Springs, what do you remember about your excitement? What do you remember about the interview process? And then, Sean, what do you remember about getting the call and saying, yeah, you got the job?
Well, my husband is an alumni, so he played on the men's soccer team back in the late 90s, and so UCCS has always been a school sort of close to our family's hearts, and I would drive past the campus on a daily basis on my commute to Colorado College, and just watching the growth and the expansion of the campus over the last 10 years or so. I always felt like it was a beautiful area of the country to live and a great school. Obviously academics are really good in the CU system. And having been on the club side of the fence here in the Springs for so long, I knew that we had a hotbed of players here that were always looking to go to other areas of the country to play. So I just felt like it was a little bit of an untapped resource, almost like Pride when I first came to the country, and I just felt like it was a school that I could take and a program I could take over and do great things with right away. The interview process, it was initially tricky to get through because I didn't have any previous collegiate head coaching experience. So initially, certainly had to fight for an opportunity to get into the mix, so to speak. And then after that, I just felt like my strengths and just the success that I've had at every level of the game sort of came to the forefront of the administration's mind, and was really excited to be given that chance to lead the program.
So when did you know that you had a really special team, particularly coming into this year? I'm looking at your stats here, Sean. 19-0, 13-0 in the conference, 11-0 at home, 8-0 away. 18 different players have scored at least one goal. You have 3 players on your team that have double-digit goals. Caitlin Hinkle's got 10 goals, 4 assists. Tanner Sanders has 11 goals, 5 assists. Sinead Hopcroft, 13 goals, 11 assists. You've scored 66 goals, and I don't know what happened. You guys must have been slackers, but you happened to give up 8 goals total. I can't believe you gave up 8 goals, Sean. Obviously, I'm having fun with you. 66 goals for 8 against. That's a superpower right there. What a season.
Yeah, I would say that first and foremost, my coaching philosophy is based on attacking and, fun soccer. I like to get the fans off their seats, and I like to recruit players that are really sophisticated on the ball, and for anybody that's seen our team play this season, I think, they would be really impressed with the way that we move the ball. And obviously we have a lot of players that are contributing goals, but I think a lot of that comes from our philosophy of, the way that we attack and get numbers into the attacking area of the field. So, Caitlin Hinkle, Tana Sanders have come in this year and really led our line as freshmen and scored obviously double-digit goals themselves, but they've also created goals for others, and I think just that, freshman mentality to come in and make a difference says a lot about their character and their integrity. And I spend a lot of time getting to know recruits on the phone and getting to know their coaches to make sure that the players that we're bringing in are not just good players, but good people. And I think those two in particular have really risen to the challenge this season. And Caitlin just scored the winning goal for us on Sunday in a really tight contest versus Westminster. Sinead, I'm British myself, and so I'm really passionate about giving British kids the opportunity to come over to the States and make that change in their life that I was able to make. I think there's so much to learn from this culture that we live in here in the States that's really driven by athletics. So Sinead has been somebody we've had on our roster for a year, but she redshirted last year due to an ACL injury. And she's just a special talent. I mean, she's so gifted at what she does. She's exciting to watch, and just watching her movement off the ball and the things that she does on the ball, I think it gives the whole team an extra dimension.
Well, I like that you mentioned her, and it made me want to kind of flash through your roster. And knowing your background, I was like, okay, I'm going to see a ton of players from overseas. But really, she's the only one, and you've got a ton of players from Colorado Springs and the Colorado area, and then connecting states. I mean, you clearly said, hey, to the great young women in Colorado that want to stay in the area, I've got a great venue for you, and they've obviously accepted that with open arms. You've got a lot of great players from Colorado on your team, Coach.
Yeah, I think one of the most important things to me as a coach as I go through sort of the recruiting process is to when I was on the club side of the fence, I never really felt like the head coaches here of programs across Colorado were really passionate about keeping the best Colorado kids in Colorado. And that was something that frustrated me as a club director, and something that I always knew that if I got an opportunity at the collegiate level, that I just wanted to maintain a home base, because I think representing whether it's your home city or your home state, there's just something additional about, that loyalty and sort of that drive. So while we have a huge number of kids that are local on the roster, next year we'll bring in some players to maybe diversify us a little bit more, but keeping a home base of talent and the excitement that brings across the community. This Saturday we'll get to host the RMAC Championship for the first time, and the soccer community is just buzzing right now because we have so many local kids on the roster. I think it just brings that additional excitement.
We shouldn't be surprised you're 19-0. Your first year as a coach, you went 17-5-1. Last year you went 16-3-3. So obviously you hit the ground running. That's a lot of victories, Coach. Knowing what you learned in those first 2 years at 19-0, at number one in the country, even with that bullseye there, do you feel like you know what it's going to take to win a D2 championship this year?
Yeah, even though we were the Cinderella story in 2017 and people always talked about being the dark horse, I was disappointed in 2017. We didn't win a national championship that year, if I'm being completely honest. And in 2018, we were actually probably deeper in terms of talent, but we had an incredibly just unfortunate run of injuries last year. And we were still able to have a good deal of success with that. But this year, I think at this point, we certainly want to win an RMAC championship on Saturday, but, I would be lying to you if I said that anything less than a national championship at this point would be a disappointment.
That's incredible. So remind us all where the D2 National Championship Final Four is. Where is it? When is it?
It is in Pittsburgh the weekend of December 12th to 14th. And obviously we've got some, incredibly difficult games to get through. But, as I've been preaching to the team over the course of the past couple of months, pressure is a privilege, and we're excited to have this target on our back. And, the long-term vision and the long-term goal is to establish this program as a national contender year in, year out. And I think over the course of the last 3 years, we've been able to put our name out there. And this year to hold the national ranking for, I think, our 7th week of number 1, I think just shows a lot about, sort of the drive and the determination, not only of the women's soccer program, but UCCS athletics in general, just to sort of change who we are and to put ourselves on that national map.
Let's go back to those early days before the knees gave way and getting the call up for the Wales national team at 16, playing with, grown women. Take us back to those days and what that was like.
Yeah, the landscape then at the time, I was actually playing on a boys team, a local boys team, and was told at age 12, as soon as you hit your 12th birthday back then in the UK, that you couldn't play soccer on a co-ed team anymore. So I remember laying in the bathtub and begging my mom to start a women's or a girls team, which she did. And, my mom sort of became one of the pioneers in Wales for women's soccer. And now it's great to see sort of a fully fledged program, but back at the time there was maybe only 4 or 5 really good teams in Wales, and so every weekend we would cross the bridge into England and go and take on some of the best English teams, and my club at the time won promotion 5 years in a row for us to get into the 2nd tier of professional soccer in England. And obviously to represent your country in any sport at any level is an honor, and I was thrilled to not only play for my country at every age group, but to captain my country as well. And at 16, I did become the youngest full international player at the time, but I only got 3 games, 3 international caps before I tore my first ACL, and then I came back, played 4 games, and tore my 2nd ACL. And so, during that period of time, I'm a firm believer that, one door closes and another door opens. And during that time, I really dedicated myself to the coaching side of things. And once I sort of defined that my career wasn't going to be what I hoped it would be at the time, and had sort of lost a yard of pace, and I wasn't the player after my injuries that I was before. I'm a really competitive person, and so I just decided to take my life in a different direction, and I stepped back from playing and decided to come over to the States and see what I could do for myself in the coaching side.
I like that you shared the story about how your mom made a major influence in keeping your career going when they said they couldn't play boys anymore. Obviously, your mom had to be part of the equation and naming you Sian and spelling it S-I-A-N. I get it because you're over in Wales. It's going to be spelled differently, and it's not like there's no Sians over here that are women. Shawn Johnson's pretty famous Sian name. But just talk about what you know about why they named you Sian and the spelling, because it's awesome.
Well, I'm from Wales originally, and Sian is a Welsh name, and the English translation of Sian is Jane. So I definitely get called Sian a lot. I've decided to give up on fighting that battle and just accept it and smile. But yeah, my Welsh heritage is certainly something that's incredibly important to me. And I think, our flag is a dragon, and I think that I've got a little bit of fire in my belly to prove to everybody that, whether it's myself coming into, different aspects of the game, or whether it's UCCS that's probably looked at as an underdog in the Division II national sort of powers. I think I've always had this little bit of a chip on my shoulder to take an underdog, if you will, and fight to show those big dogs out there that, we can come out there and compete.
2 more questions, and we'll let you go as we are talking with Shawn Hudson, the head coach of the University of Colorado Springs, the Mountain Lions, number 1 in the country, D2 women, and clearly set to try to win a national championship in Pittsburgh mid-December. As you know, Shawn, you learned it as an assistant coach. You got to have a great coaching staff. Talk about how you put together your coaching staff.
Yeah, there's so many honors that come out with, Coach of the Year was a recent one, and, no coach can ever be a great coach without a phenomenal staff, and I definitely have that. And Lindsay Balconi is my assistant coach, sort of my right-hand woman, if you will, and she came into the college coaching arena last year when she moved to Colorado from Cincinnati. And so she's been with me. This is her second season, and Lizzie does a phenomenal amount of work for the program. She's our strength and conditioning coach. She does a lot of work on the field technically with the girls, clipping film, everything. And then Mike Archuleta has also been with me since day one. He's my goalkeeper coach. He actually played on the UCCS men's team with my husband and was coaching here at the Air Force Academy and wanted to come home to UCCS when I got the job. So those two do a phenomenal job. And then we have a support staff. Great, Kaylin Smith is our GA. She played at the University of Washington and Virginia Tech, so she brings, and then played with us last year for her last year of eligibility. So she just brings a great perspective for the players on sort of all the different levels and just sort of their outlook and how they need to, be professional in their preparation. And then Hannah Levitt, Cole, Oren, and Mark Archambault do a lot of work for us as volunteer assistants. They're, huge in the local community. Hannah and Cole coach for Pride still to this day. So it's just, again, a great team, and I think that's the biggest thing that I can say about my staff is we're a great team in addition to the team.
You mentioned great team. I think it's just a great time to be involved in women's soccer. The USA win another World Cup, NWSL, great attendance. We're seeing outstanding attendance for women's college soccer as well. We'll end it kind of with just a general question about also a great time to be part of United Soccer Coaches because they care so much about women and diversity and particularly promoting women to coaching jobs like the one you have. Can you just talk a little bit about what education and perhaps what United Soccer Coaches has meant to you?
Yeah, I think the United Soccer Coaches do a great job of just sort of publicizing our game and our sport and just giving coaches of both genders and all ages just sort of a platform to have a voice. Obviously the rankings that come out on a weekly basis generate a lot of publicity and excitement. And, watching the selection show yesterday for Division I and Division II next week, I think that there's just a buzz, about the women's game at the moment. Obviously I'm British, so seeing 77,000 people at Wembley last week for England versus Germany was, put a put a tear in my eye, to be honest, just to see how the game has transformed in the UK and then everything that's happening here with the United States women's team and just sort of the excitement, winning the World Cup in the summer and just sort of the platform and how the women's game is evolving with equal play and just additional opportunities. I'm a mom as well, and so I hope one day when my 10-year-old gets to that point, whether it's in sports or in life in general, that she has the opportunity to go out there as a female in any professional setting and improve herself and earn what she, should rightly get. So it's just an exciting time, I think, to be a female and certainly to be a female athlete or a female coach.
Well said. Sean Hudson, I certainly enjoyed it. As I told you, I loved my time in Colorado Springs. Great memories. So to see a team number one in the country, 19-0, and then to be able to spend some quality time with you, I certainly appreciate it. And I can tell you our listeners on the United Soccer Coaches podcast will appreciate it as well. Keep it going. Make it all the way to Pittsburgh and bring it home, okay, Sean? Congrats on all your success.
Thanks, Dean, and thank you to the listeners.
Thank you to Sean, Chris Henderson, Chris Rich, Kobe Hale. Another great show. Also want to thank Sean Chevreau, Mike Knipper with United Soccer Coaches for each and every one of them and each and every one of you. I'm Dean Linke. See you same time, same channel for another edition